Hello and welcome to Getting Your Money's Worth, the show that focuses on value. I'm Judith West, and our guest today is John Prestbo, developer and founder of the Global Dow Jones, executive director of the Dow Jones.
Title,
that was your baby.
That's my baby.
Okay, thanks for being on this show. A lot of folks know Dow Jones, what the Dow Jones is. But just to lay out the groundwork, let's just repeat again. The Dow Jones that most of us are familiar with is domestic Dow Jones.
Correct, the Dow Jones Industrial Average.
And that consists of what, 30 leading stocks?
30 big stocks, yes.
Right. Are they still big, John?
They're still big relative to the ones that are smaller.
They're smaller, but still big, right? Everything's relative. Okay, and you guys, and you were spurred to develop this concept called Global Dow Jones.
Right.
As far as tell us about that.
Okay.
How did the idea come about?
Well, the idea came about because more and more investors are looking at their equity part of their portfolio as something that ought to be exposed to global growth rather than just domestic growth, or mainly domestic and a little smidgen of international.
Right.
So the Global Dow is intended to show the leading companies around the world that are available to investors and are part of the global scheme.
Yeah, and we sort of have seen, especially even in this economic debacle, that it's very hard to divorce the United States economy from the rest of the world.
Oh, absolutely, and it's going to become even more intertwined as we go into the decades ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I saw in today's New York Times that China is reluctant to take on any more American debt.
That's right.
Paper.
And the American slowdown and recession is affecting the factories and employment in China.
Yeah.
So,
this show is called Getting Your Money's Worth, and we have a wide range of folks that view it. How does this relate to the average investor, these Dow Jones indexes, both domestic and global, John?
Well,
how are you supposed to use them?
Well, the reason that Charles Dow invented averages in the first place back in the 1800s was just to show people where the market was moving. And so how you define the market then becomes the important thing. Like you said, we started out with domestic focus.
Right.
Now we're going, in addition, we're going with a global focus. And that it's there simply to give people, like a weather vane, it's there to give people a sense of which way the wind's blowing.
Which way the wind is blowing. Is it still relevant today?
Oh, absolutely. The industrial average, while it's the oldest and some say least sophisticated of indexes, nonetheless tracks very accurately what the U.S. market is doing and by extension the U.S. economy. So it's kind of the shorthand way people have of looking at the market.
What is considered to be, maybe even more so now, a very cost-efficient way of investing, which is index fund. Is that based on your Dow Jones?
Well, some of them are, yes.
People could buy the Dow Jones Index Fund, correct?
That's correct. It's called Diamonds, and it trades on...
Oh, it's called Diamonds?
It's called Diamonds.
That's a good name.
Dow Industrial Average Managed, I don't know what.
And it trades?
Yeah, that trades on the Amex, which is now part of the New York Stock Exchange.
I don't suppose you can go from here and go back and play with some of those numbers, can you?
No, I'm afraid not.
Okay.
We don't cook the books like they do.
like some of these folks we're hearing about. Right. Speaking of that, I didn't want to go into that, but cooking. Are you surprised by what's going on, John? You've been doing this for a while.
No, I'm afraid I've seen it before.
So you've been doing it for a while, and no, you're not surprised.
No, I'm not. I mean, periods of wealth and greed and all of that we've gone through in the late 90s and again in the past few years breeds that sort of thing. People never quite get enough.
No matter what you have, enough's not enough.
That's right. And so these kinds of schemes always show up one way or another. They may take different forms, but they are there for the same reason.
Speaking of enough, we've been trying to get you on this show since I read about you in believe it or not, 2 years ago.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, in the Wall Street Journal. And you wrote a very interesting piece on retirement. And I think a couple of years ago you were considering retirement or thinking about it. And you said that your retirement portfolio the market had been good to you and you felt that you had enough to retire.
Right.
Speaking of what is enough, how do people adjust? How do they cope with retirement plans that they may have or retirement that they're into now in this debacle? I mean, if you hadn't retired, what would you be doing? How would you be adjusting?
Well, I might be looking for a job. I mean,
Right.
some people who have gone into retirement are in fact back in the part-time job market or something like that. I've stayed working, have not retired. That was kind of the point of that article.
Yeah, that you kept on.
That I kept on going, and I not because I needed the money specifically.
But at the time, you didn't know,
No,
obviously, this was going to happen.
That's right. But because I enjoy doing what I'm doing, and now that we're faced with what we are faced with, and I have had my savings dented quite a bit, like everybody else.
Right.
I'm going to keep working as long as I can.
Right. But it's tough for folks that have given up their work, and you can't go back so easy. I really feel I have a great sympathy for that, and I wonder how we're going to handle that as a country.
I do too, and the only thing that's going in favor of the people who have retired is that they were brought up by parents who suffered through the Great Depression.
Wow.
And so they have some of the folklore that sort of helps them get along with less and still have a good life. Whereas our young people today who have been given everything from the cradle and more toys than they know what to do with, and now electronic gadgets, I don't know how easy it's going to be for them to withdraw from the consumer society.
I read someplace where it says Americans may yet return to their roots and start watching every penny.
Yes, I think so.
Right.
And I noticed that we too, even though I'm not out of a job, my wife and I are simply doing with less.
Doing with less, yeah.
Of course, trying to lose weight too, so that helps.
That helps too. But I agree with you. Getting back though to the indexes and the marketplace. I know you're not an investment counselor, but still, you developed this global Dow Jones because there were people going into the global market.
Correct.
Right? Is that still happening, or is this economic debacle, as you said, going to force us to kind of pull in and stay close to home?
Well, it's doing that for some people. There's no doubt that because emerging markets went down.
What are emerging markets for folks that?
Well, there's the distinction we make is developed markets, and those are big established economies like United Kingdom, Japan, France, that sort of thing. And then there are emerging markets which are not necessarily smaller in geographic size, but smaller in economic output. They have a less broad base on which their economy is built. It might be more agriculture or something like that. Brazil is a good example. It has a big growing manufacturing sector, but a lot of its gross domestic product is based on agriculture.
Right.
So these are the emerging markets, and they're the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund and so forth they classify them, and we follow the IMF designation.
Do folks outside of the U.S. use your Global Dow Jones product?
Well, I certainly hope they do. Right. Yes, right. I mean that's why it's there, and we do have some.
And do they use the domestic Dow Jones also?
Absolutely, right. Absolutely. We have very heavy trading in the futures and options that are based on the Dow Jones Industrial Average, and we expect that someday that will be true of the Global Dow as well.
Exactly. You've been in the market a while. I'm told that the 4 overused words in the market is this time it's different. I'm not nearly as wise in the market as you are. Tell me something. What's your point of view about this time it's different?
This time it's not different. I think. I think there could be some differences that come out of this period depending on any changes that might be made in the regulatory structure, in other. A lot of the Wall Street firms that were investment banks are now regular banks.
Or not around.
Or not around at all. But the ones that are around and are regular banks will be regulated much differently and more so than they were as investment banks. As a result, their behavior in as far as profit growth and activities are going to be probably different. The Wall Street Journal had a story about that terrible weekend in
I saw
September.
that.
It says the day Wall Street died.
I saw that. I read that article about it was about Lehman going under, and it almost read, John, as a novel.
Yes, it did.
I had to remind myself that I wasn't reading fiction.
But as far as the economy and the market is concerned, what we're seeing, or what we did see in 2008 and are still seeing to some extent in 2009, is very much the way it should be. We had a bubble, a credit bubble, and it burst, and now
I suppose what it does is only prove the adages that we all know, that trees don't go to the sky.
That's right.
And if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
That's right. That's absolutely correct.
Right.
And people keep having to learn that lesson.
Over and over again.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad to have you on. As I say, I was interested in having you. But as in a last word, the few minutes that we have left, for folks that are wondering what to do, and I know you're not an investment counselor, but from your own experience, what words can we leave people with?
Well, first of all, don't be frightened to the extent that you just pull back and dig yourself a hole and stick your head into it. Right. The best way to invest is with a diversified portfolio. That means you don't put it all into stocks. You don't put it all.
You don't give it all to a person.
And you don't all give it to somebody on Wall Street who says, "Don't worry, I'll take care of you." Right. But you do have to adjust your portfolio depending where you are in life's journey. And so one of the popular things that have come to pass in the last several years are called target date funds, which you pick a fund that has a date close to when you intend to retire, say.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And then your money starts out when you're young, your money is put to use in more aggressive investments, heavier in stocks.
And then the allocation changes.
And then the allocation changes as you get older and closer to retirement.
How did the index fund, our last word, how did the index fund based upon the Dow Jones do?
Well, you mean the diamonds?
Yeah.
Down 30-some%.
So it kept up with the market.
Yeah.
Except that it was a lot cheaper to invest in those as far as management fees, right?
Right. That's absolutely right.
Okay, well, it was a pleasure to have you on. I do pay attention to your Dow Jones and domestic. Now I will global. And good luck when you do decide to retire. I hope by then all of us can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for being on the show. You're watching Getting Your Money's Worth. I'm Judith West. Thanks for watching.